And hi, we're back in part 2 of Devil's Advocate. Here I
There
am.
you are.
I'm Tracy.
And I'm alive. Hey guys, welcome back.
You were talking. What were we talking about? Part 1. You mentioned history. What were you talking about?
Yes, I was mentioning the history with South Africa, and I'm very interested to know what were the wars that you learned of, what was like the disagreements that you learned of, because like we never really picked up that stuff in England. You know, it was very much medieval England that we focused on like our own wars and stuff like that. But I think that's like a given for any country,
Oh
right?
yeah, as I was going to say, I could have asked you the same question. I mean, I may be British, but my British history is sparse.
That's
Very
what
sparse.
I mean. And that's kind of a shame how they do that, because you would think with the curriculum and everything that's going on in the world today that we should be knowing about everything, but there's just so much in the world.
I don't think it's just curriculum. I mean, it also depends whether you're going to public school or private school as well. I mean, I learned very different history at primary school, which was public school, and in boarding school, which was also partially primary school. But there were two different types of history. I went to an English-speaking public school, but we learned South African history. I mean, history of the world. There's so much about the history of the world.
Oh, there's so much
but
history.
I've never really thought that you learn it in context, mostly because I wasn't taught in context of anything. You might have small context within the microcosm of the nation that you were telling the history in. I mean, the one thing I do remember is Dingaan's Day, December the 16th, and this comes from the Battle of Blood River.
Oh wow!
Huge, about that. Well, you've got that kraal. That's all that's the Voortrekkers.
Oh wow!
Dutch. They were moving up from the Cape. They got to Blood River. Historically, they wanted to do it, but now I'm trying to talk from memory, so I haven't read a book recently. I'd have to go in and research this again, because I really don't even know that very well. The fact that we celebrated Dingaan's Day is whoop-de-doo. So we celebrated Dingaan's Day. A whole bunch of people died. The Dutch, Dingaan. I mean, and this was, I think it was Dingaan who actually killed Shaka Zulu. I mean, everybody's heard of Shaka Zulu. There's a movie about it and everything. So we had all of those battles. I mean, one particular thing I remember is Wolmeron's Voltmar Day. He was this dude who rode on a horse into the sea to save a bunch of people who were drowning off a ship offshore.
Oh, geez. Ran out on a horse to try and save
people. He rode out on his horse. I do believe he drowned in his efforts. I'm not quite sure what happened to the horse. It probably drowned too.
Yeah, I was going to say that's very heroic, but also very tragic.
Yeah, very tragic.
Save that many people of just yourself and a horse. Very heroic. Good for him.
But you're talking about 1838 for the Battle of Blood River. But then you go up to the Boer War. Now, I think I remember hearing about it.
Yeah.
And had I done possibly Standard 4 and Standard 5 at the public school, I may have heard more about it.
Right.
But I kind of stopped learning South African history at this point, and I was dumped into a private boarding school. I enjoyed it, no problem with it, but it was very British education. And instead of teaching me anything about South Africa or even British history, I got to learn about the pyramids.
That's interesting.
I learned about Cleopatra and Alexander and Caesar and the Greeks, bunch of mythology. And then, of course, I did learn more about the Roman history because I learned Latin while I was at private school. So, so I had these two different contrasts when it came to learning British history, or knowing that when there was a Boer War, that they had concentration camps. And there was 2 Boer Wars, if I remember correctly, one just before 1900 and one just after, just around about the time Queen Victoria died. So there was, and they had, and you hear from the Nazis, we talk about the Nazis, and we talk about World War II, and you hear about the concentration camps. And I think we're frozen.